Morning everyone, it's Yvonne here to do your What's Cracking reading. Thank you. I'm not even going to say any more today. We're going to use the Thelema Tarot for your reading today. Have I got anything to catch you up on? If you haven't joined my other channel, the Aussie Goddess Astro Tarot, please go and join me. The link is in the box below. A few people aren't saying to me on here about doing sign readings. So I've been posting the site below your comments. So if you're after star sign readings, I do them. I try to do one every day. Sometimes I get 2 in, sometimes I might get more, sometimes I don't do any. So it just depends on what other demands I have going on in the day. What else? No, I think that's it. All right, let's get into this reading. Did I say I was using the Thelema Tarot? Oh, okay, so we have the Hierophant coming up, and I'm pretty sure he's made a visit a few times in the last week. The Hierophant is the high priest. For me, the Hierophant as a high priest sort of maintains the more traditional, habitual things in our lives that we sort of, I suppose, subscribe to. But he can also represent like big organizations or churches and the tradition of churches, like marriage, that type of thing. When he comes up in a reading, very often he says to me that either there's some sort of traditional thing that you're trying to dislodge, or perhaps, I mean, it can also be marriage too, but to me, it's very much around our traditional beliefs. So when it comes up in a reading, especially a personal reading, I really want to sit and challenge the person in front of me, because I want to say to them, are you stuck in a way of thinking that is built in your own social constructs? If we break that down a little bit, maybe the tradition of marriage. You know, some people believe, even if they're in incredibly abusive relationships, that they have to stay in them because they've made that commitment. It can also talk about large organizations. So it could talk about, you know, working in a large organization, having to go to a large organization. But also, if it's with other cards, sometimes it could represent, for example, a hospital. But mostly for me, it's about that sort of traditional way of thinking, that, and you're changing that. All right. So sometimes when we've been brought up with a certain belief system, and sometimes it can be so entrenched in where we are or who we are, that we actually don't realize that we've even carried it around with us for a long time. And it isn't until someone else challenges it or we have that epiphany. And like I say, you don't have the epiphanies until you've sort of got to the point where you can really relate to them. So somebody said to me the other day, I have heart disease in my DNA. You know, I've been told I've got heart disease. My father died of heart disease. His father died of heart disease. And that was it. This person was resigned to the fact they were going to die from heart disease. I'm like, okay, you may have some propensity for that particular thing. But if you start eating healthy and cut out some of the things that may cause heart disease, and exercise more and take care of yourself and love yourself and free your mind and meditate, whatever it takes, then maybe you won't follow in that same path. A lot of our families already had those things that they died from, but it doesn't necessarily mean we are going to. But you know what? This is people's mindsets, and that needs to be challenged. Not always are you going to find you are going to have the same thing. You know, if you look back at your family, I mean, I've had some really family who've died very young, and some family that have really died very old. I don't know which genetics I've got through. Maybe something can tell you that. Maybe you can have a test or something. But what I'm trying to say is, if your mindset is set on, I'm not going to live very long because my family have all died from this particular thing, sometimes that sort of doesn't allow you to think outside the box. And it just takes a little bit of thinking outside the box to maybe change the way you see that. But if you're stuck in that energy, then how can you live your full life always been stuck in the thought of, this is how I'm going to leave the planet. We shouldn't be talking about our deaths. We start this all the time, even on the television. From the time we're young, we're told about skin cancer and how high the rates of melanoma are in Australia and what you're going to die from. From the moment you are born, you are told those things. So we're raised, I refuse to watch the news because everything on the news is negative. I sit there and I think everything they talk about is negative, until in the end you become so overwhelmed that you can be reduced to tears. So when the hanged man comes around, I feel like there's some sort of way of seeing something here that you are looking at differently. And I like this because you've got the sun next. So we'll dig a little bit deeper though. But the sun for me, there's a really good one. You know, people being told, you know, if you go out in the sun, then you are going to get cancer, sun cancer. But you see a lot of people don't go out in the sun, and then you get low vitamin D deficiency, which is linked to diabetes. It is linked to a million other things, including pain in your body, which really these things they're recognizing now. And that lack of vitamin D can cause depression. There's a million things. So what do we think about then? I suppose we're trying to find what is the balance. What is the balance? You can go out in the sun as long as you have protection if you're going to be out for a really long time. But if you're only going to be out for a short time, maybe you can skip that and just make sure that you don't get too much sun. So I feel like it's really about balance. But I see the sun there and I think things are really turning around because of your belief system here. So whatever it is, you're taking a leap of faith with the Fool. So it may not be any of those things for you. You know, sometimes people comment and I want to ask them, what was your limiting belief? If you feel comfortable putting that up here and learning about that, I'd love you to share it with other people, because some of our limiting beliefs are really problematic for us. I've often talked about that idea around, you know, we've got to save everybody. We've got to fix everybody. We have to bend over backwards to make other people happy. And we become so entrenched in that belief that sometimes when I say to people, you know, you're doing it at your own cost, they say, but I love to do it. Do you really? Do you really? Or have you been socialized to believe that is the best way you can do things? I'm not saying you shouldn't do things because they make you feel good. I'm asking you, if someone's running you into the ground because they ask so much of you and you're still saying, oh, but I love doing it, then there's a problem there, especially if that person isn't reciprocating in some way, shape or form. And what I mean by that is they don't have to pay you or give you something back as long as they're grateful for what you're doing. But I see people serving parents and not even getting a thanks for it. And I think, why do you keep doing this? Oh, you know, because I have to look after my parents. It's my role. Is it? You know, challenge the way you think about things, because really and truly some of those things are entrenched in us because of the way we've been raised. You should do things because they feel good for you, yes, but if they become taxing or they impact you or your family, then maybe you need to consider, am I heading in the right direction? All right, let's see where we're going with this. Big one. All right, have the Page of Wands coming through with the 8 of Pentacles. There you go. There's something to do with, oh, and the 9 of Wands. I love seeing the 9 of Wands because I feel like the 9 of Wands for me, I know we call this the Wounded Warrior card, but for me this is repeating something over and over again, and perhaps sometimes seeing it but still not being able to discern what it means for you. Let's think of an example. You know, you do something, somebody comes over and asks you to do something. Your neighbour knocks on the door and says, look, it's really hard for me. I need to go to the doctors and I'm having trouble with my children. Would you be able to watch my children for a little while I just go to the doctors? And out of the goodness of your own heart, you say, well, okay. The next time it happens, you think, oh, well, okay, I'll do it this time, but I need to say no in the future. But that word no just won't come out. And then the next time that person brings them over and you find yourself still saying yes, that person leaves that child for overnight and never comes back, or comes back the next day. Those sort of things happen. That one happened to me. So if you can't say no, then you are serving other people and not considering yourself, which means that the other person ain't going to consider you either. Like if you're that easy a walkover, they're going to do the same thing. But for some unknown reason, we think it's the right thing to do. So we say to people, so here you're repeating it. You're repeating it. If you're doing it because you want to, that's a bit different. But are you saying yes out of obligation, saying yes out of guilt, saying yes out of fear, or yes because you don't know how to say no? Then you're doing the wounded warrior thing. You're going around in circles. Now, this is something you need to work on because it's coming through as part of your ongoing lessons in this lifetime. So, you know, sometimes I want to talk a little bit deeper about this. I won't go into really into too deeper depth. This is about what you've been taught when you were a child. So I always say to people, people teach you this because they stand to benefit, nothing else. So if you're taught that a certain way of doing things is the way you need to do them, then when you're thinking about this, ask yourself, why did I think this way? I remember as a child always people talking about me as if I was some sort of like angel, like, oh, Yvonne's so well behaved and she doesn't speak out of turn and she's so polite. I was terrified. I lived my life absolutely terrified in those years. I would have been totally scared to speak up and say something. And the first time I did that, you know, I got the biggest hiding, like, and lots of other things that I could tell you about. But what starts to happen is you get a child that's scared to speak up. And while I think that, you know, there's a good rule of thumb around boundaries for your children, beating the living daylights out of them is not the way to go. You do not want to raise someone who in their adulthood is then terrified of saying no to something. It makes you very, very vulnerable. So I feel like here there is yet manifestation. All right, let's just see what else is coming through. Look at all the major arcanas coming through again. Okay, so for some of you here, this is about taking up leadership in your own life. Absolutely. Learning that you are responsible for you. You look after you. You're the one that makes yourself happy. Nobody else can do those things for you. You are fully and ultimately the responsibility of yourself. Unless for some way, shape or form you can't do something, in which case you need to rely on other people. And one would hope that if you're in that position, you're incredibly grateful for what other people do for you. So I feel like here, especially with the World and the Magician, I feel like I'm speaking to somebody here who really doesn't understand this and probably listening to me and thinking, what are you talking about? Oh, come on, Yvonne, what are you talking about? Because you haven't realized the depth of the pain this is causing you along the way. You're needing to learn this now. So if I'm not the one coming through with those messages, then you're going to get epiphanies from other people. You're going to start to understand. But I can tell you now, whenever I raise that with people, they go, I know. And yet you're not doing anything. Oh, I find it really hard to say no. Practice, learn. You know, it's not so hard. If you don't want to do something and you want to say no, then it is hard the first time. I remember the first time I spoke up for myself and it caused all sorts of ruckus. What is wrong with Yvonne? There's something wrong with her. She said no to me. And it became this big thing at work that I'd said no to someone, because I'd been so seen as the yes person all the time. Yes, do the extra shift, do this, sweep the floors, do my job too as well as your own. I'd be yes, 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 of course, no worries. I was terrified of conflict. So I want to say to you here, there is something that you need to work on here. There it is. That was the card I was waiting to come through. The Four of Swords to me is that very deep healing. It's like the Hermit card. So we have the Emperor coming through. I have a lot of Aries energy here. Look, standing in your truth. Do you realize too that if you're always saying yes when you mean no, you're going to come across to people as perhaps being ingenuous or not being a genuine person? Because it took me a long time to realize that that mask you're wearing needs to come off. So if you're always saying yes when you don't want to, then you will be incongruent in the way you act to the way you're speaking. But for some people, they won't notice because they are so wrapped up under their own mask. So there's another thought. All right, so this is about taking your power back and standing in your truth. Understanding that you are the only person responsible for yourself. And if you don't start seeing these things for yourself, you're going to land yourself in all sorts of pickles. So if you're in a relationship and you're starting out and you're freshly dating, you really like this person, you don't want to cause conflict, and you're saying yes, 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 that person will get bored with you and they will think somehow or another you're not being genuine to who you are. So it's not a good practice. It really is about, or you can get really attached to a narcissist. They love the yes word. So whatever this is, for me, it's about standing in your power. There seems to be something deeper here you need to work on around your own limiting beliefs or your own core beliefs. Your core beliefs are those things that you think about yourself. Like, I'll say yes all the time because I'm not worthy. And if I say yes all the time, people will like me and validate me. So that then becomes a core belief. I'm worthless, and other people bear that responsibility for picking me up and holding me up. That in itself, any sort of external validation that you're seeking, other people can't do that for you. You have to find that within you. So I know that our only place that I can remember doing that really badly was at work. Like, I used to think that I needed to hear how good I was at work to be good at what I did. So there are a lot of things that you need to probably think about, because traditionally you've probably thought this way for a really long time. But I see you looking at it differently now. You're looking at that situation a little bit differently. And I think that's going to help, because I see the sun shining. You know how good it feels that first time you say, no, I'm not going to do that, or no, I don't want to, or no, I'm too busy with my... You don't have to give excuses either. No is a complete answer in those regards. But what I see is a person taking a leap of faith here, a brand new beginning, a closing out of that old cycle and moving into a new time. Absolutely beautiful. Let us see what the universe says about that. I love it when I hear people being really, assertive, not aggressive. There is a really big difference. And if you think they're the same, then you need to have a look at that as well. Because sometimes people say, I don't want to be aggressive. I'm like, you're not being aggressive by saying no. You're just looking after yourself. And again, who stands to benefit if you keep saying yes? Okay. We have the Green Woman coming out. I really like this card. Look at that. The Green Woman. Oh, I feel like she's really quite powerful there. So let's see what she says. Card 23. Here she is. Wildness, natural magic, expectant gratitude, untrammeled creativity. The Green Woman speaks to us of caring for our grounding. Sorry, I did this yesterday too. Really good usually reading, but I don't know what's wrong with me at the moment. I've got a marble in my mouth or something. The Green Woman speaks to us of caring for our growing ground and of the physical satisfaction of our natural selves and practicing our own innate magic. So that's looking after ourselves and the world around us. This is a time for enhancing the growth of our talents and abilities, a time of blossoming that will bear fruit. I think she looks really cheeky. So instead of saying yes, just poke your tongue out at someone and go, no, no, don't do that. It may be a time of growing maturity and self-confidence. Experience trusting yourself and trusting that process of growth. She also reminds us of material reward ahead. That's the manifestation. So remember, all these things you do to grow put you in a better energy for manifesting what you want. But if you're always sort of doing everything for everybody else, when have you got time for yourself? She also reminds us of material reward ahead, the harvest of the seeds we have planted and nurtured. She counsels boldness and perseverance in the face of adversity. But she also reminds us that sometimes the only action we can take is to wait patiently and keep growing. I love her. Keep her in your mind for today. I feel like she really embodies that. Take care. Have a great weekend. Bye.